welcome to the Above Average Podcast, the only refuge for the slightly above average, ever so slightly. Tanim, how you doing?
Not bad, and you?
Well, I'm pretty good, but also kind of shit because we are doing the Barbenheimer episode.
Damn it.
So, yeah. So, I want to start by saying don't watch 2 movies in one day. It's no fun. Don't do it. There's way better uses for your time than spending 6 hours in a movie theater in July.
Or August.
It's a big mistake. Yeah, or August. But I watched it in July, so we're gonna go with that.
All right.
But either way, you didn't watch either of them.
I actually just saw Oppenheimer.
Oh, okay. All right. So we kind of both did Barbenheimer. I watched both movies in the same day.
Lucky you.
After watching Oppenheimer once the day before. So that was a big mistake on my part. But not because either of the movies are bad. Both are pretty good. Not
at the same day.
Not what I actually want to be doing.
Yep.
Not what I want to be doing. All right. I guess we'll start with Oppenheimer because we've both seen it, and I mean, I think there's less to talk about there. But all right, what did you think of Oppenheimer?
I was lucky to see it in IMAX, so splurged, I guess.
Very nice, very nice.
It is long, so brace yourself. Also, if you do know who Oppenheimer is, it's kind of just like a history lesson, whereas if you don't know, it's just like a cool history lesson of what he did, and whether you like him or not. But I thought it was okay for a Nolan film, but not great.
It's definitely not as visually spectacular as his other movies. Don't get me wrong, the actual atomic bombing, and this is not a spoiler-free review, but they have a sequence of the Earth being absorbed in fire.
Yep.
And that was pretty cool, but it's not like Tenet or
Interstellar, Inception.
Dunkirk. Yeah, where there's these big set pieces. It's a little more. A lot of the movie is councils and boardrooms and hearings, and yelling at J. Robert Oppenheimer and yelling at other people. So that I think the movie could have been cut down a little.
Oh, definitely.
Not every bit of the movie was necessary. Also, I like how Einstein was a magical elf character. He's like a Gandalf. He just comes by to offer sage advice.
Yep.
That's kind of cryptic and useless every once in a while. So that was fun. I think all in all they do a good job of Oppenheimer's whole journey of him justifying building atomic weapons, because and this is one criticism I've heard of the movie, that it didn't address the fact that J. Robert Oppenheimer was Jewish enough as part of his motivation for creating the bomb. But they do kind of say it explicitly.
Yep.
A few times. So that criticism is not legitimate. It's huge in terms of how he justifies the whole thing to himself. And the movie is kind of a fight between his ego, which tells him he's the smartest and he's the greatest, and therefore has to build this bomb to prove that he can do it, and his moral qualms,
killing people and using it as a weapon.
Well, and just the existential consequences of it all. You've now given humanity a world-ending weapon, and that's something they kind of deal with throughout. But and it starts with okay, I'm Jewish, I hate the Nazis are obviously bad for the world and bad for society. I can justify building the super weapon because it's better we have it than the Nazis. Then the Nazis surrender first. And then, mad scientist types like Edward Teller want to keep building bigger and bigger bombs, and then he starts having moral qualms. And, the movie very explicitly confronts him about his, change of heart kind of halfway through. But I really forgot Edward Teller was German. Or he's not German, he's
communist?
Austrian. He's Austrian-Hungarian. Yeah. One thing I think, so Oppenheimer, is of Jewish German descent, but kind of distant. So he doesn't really have personal qualms with destroying Germany. He's he's been there, he went to university there. They don't really explore whether or not he has qualms based on the time he spent there and the friends he made, and the fact that he personally respects Werner Heisenberg
Has communist friends.
as a physicist. Yeah, exactly. But so they don't really address like what the moral qualms of destroying your own home. It's one thing to they kind of don't. One criticism I've heard is that they don't show the actual atomic bombings of Japan, like at all. And that may, undercut the seriousness of what he did. But one thing that I think is more important is the fact that, Japan's sort of distant in the movie and in the thoughts of the movie, which is kind of weird. But
I mean, they didn't want to emphasize that portion of it.
yeah, they don't show the actual bombings or the consequences of it. They kind of show Oppenheimer's reaction to it.
Yeah.
And I think that was effective, but it might have been important to show it. I mean, anyway. So yeah, one thing I think was interesting is like Oppenheimer has to at least initially working under the assumption that he's building a bomb to destroy the land his parents were born in, and the land of his ancestry, and the land where he went to university and studied under Max Born at the University of Göttingen. And that's not really addressed at all. But I think another character who I think was interesting in it was they could have explored this a little more with was Klaus Fuchs. So remember the guy who actually did sell the atomic secrets to the Russians? So that was a guy named Klaus Fuchs. So Klaus Fuchs was, I think, the only the only scientist working on the Manhattan Project who was actually born in Germany. Like, Oppenheimer's of German descent, but he was born in America. Teller speaks German, but I think he was born in Budapest, so he's of German descent, but he's Hungarian. But Klaus Fuchs is actually born in Germany, and he's living in exile in Britain at the time of the Second World War starting, and he becomes a British citizen in like the few days before Germany invades Poland. So there's like security issues around him becoming part of the Manhattan Project. But so Fuchs isn't Jewish, so he's not like one of the Jewish scientists like Einstein or Max Born or Oppenheimer's American anyway, or Teller, who are in exile in the United States fleeing the Nazis. Fuchs is a communist. But so yeah, they never show Fuchs kind of wrestle with the fact that he's building the bomb that could possibly destroy his hometown. I feel like that must have been meaningful, or something that all of them must have considered at one point or another, but it's sort of glossed over. But yeah, Klaus Fuchs sold all the secrets to the Russians. Another thing they didn't talk about is who the Rosenbergs were?
No.
Okay, so Julius and his wife, I think her name is Ethel Rosenberg. So they're also atomic spies for the Soviets, and they sold, like I said, they sold atomic secrets to the Soviets, but the U.S. government executed them in, nice, I believe, the 1950s, and that's kind of the beginning of Ethel and Julius Rosenberg executed in 1953. So it's kind of symbolic as a sort of beginning of the Red Scare and the Cold War, because there are Soviet spies on our soil and stealing our atomic secrets and shit. And that should have been something that was hanging over Oppenheimer's head when he was going through a security clearance, because Ethel and Julius Rosenberg were fucking killed. So being accused of selling atomic secrets to the Russians is not a small thing. The only reason Klaus Fuchs survived was because he was only convicted of selling atomic secrets while he was living in Britain. So he was living in Britain, went to prison there, was not executed, and then was deported to East Germany. But the Rosenbergs are kind of a more meaningful characters in the whole saga. But and it was also very strange because the United States does not execute women a lot historically. Like, they execute a lot of people, but generally don't execute women. Them executing two people for conspiracy to commit espionage, like a man and woman, husband and wife with two children, like that was a big fucking deal. And technically, they didn't kill.
Did they kill their kids too?
No, they didn't kill their kids. No, like, The U.S. isn't that insane, but like, I'm kidding. But but like, executing two people who didn't kill anyone, that was a big deal even for the time. I really think that I really think that that should have at least been mentioned, because and Fuchs being arrested is what led. Fuchs being arrested in Britain led to the arrest of the Rosenbergs in the United States. That would have been something Oppenheimer would have been keenly aware of and afraid of. They don't talk about how Edward Teller was like an ardent anti-communist, and that's why, he stuck around and kept building hydrogen bombs for the US government, and was willing to rat on all of his friends for having Communist Party connections. They kind of don't talk about that at all. Reddit made it seem like there was going to be a really lurid, awful sex scene between Florence Pugh and Cillian Murphy, which I did not want to see at all, because I don't want to see Cillian Murphy fuck, because in the words of a random Twitter or Xer, I guess they're called now. Anyway, he has those dead White Walker eyes.
Yep.
And Florence Pugh's name is Florence Pugh. So
what does that mean?
Look, I have a terrible name too. No offense. It's just anyway. It wasn't that bad. I think it served a purpose. It's weird to have like sex and people's personal lives be what the movie is about for Christopher Nolan. This was a lot more about people's personal relationships and their work than it was about big set pieces or getting over your feelings and just getting the job done for Britain. And it felt like there was, Tenet had like a lot of like meta narrative about filmmaking, so this did not have that.
Yep.
But the sex scene, I think, served the purpose of, or at least the weird one of him and Florence Pugh fucking in front of like
his wife and all the people,
the judgment board and his wife. That was like a fantasy, and I'm not sure if that was like his wife's imagination. She's like, oh, she's reliving it in her head, like them dragging out their dirty laundry in front of everyone, or if it's like a metaphor for Oppenheimer feeling like naked and exposed for having his personal life, dragged onto the public record.
I feel like it was both, because he was seeing it, but then also she saw her as well.
It was a common hallucination.
I also felt that I didn't think Florence Pugh's character was needed.
Maybe not, actually. Maybe in the sense that like she kind of only existed as a device for the government to kind of ruin Oppenheimer when he was no longer needed. And I guess that's kind of what the movie is about on a level. America's ability to like use and discard its heroes. He's like the most important scientist ever, and then they just throw him away once the Cold War means it's no longer politically convenient to have Oppenheimer have input in the government.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with her?
But that's what I mean. Like, it's not, the character's not necessary, but like the dirty laundry is necessary.
Right.
Like, something like personal and humiliating that the government can drag up, like, his extramarital affair. Yeah. I agree in the sense like the character doesn't do much, sort of exists as a device to humiliate Oppenheimer. It doesn't really
do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't develop her very much. Like, introduces her, they have sex, it establishes she's mentally ill, but it doesn't really talk about who she is much. At least I didn't think so. But
they could have cut her out.
Yeah, maybe. I guess there have been other movies where the character has an affair and they don't like show it at all, but it's brought up later. Could be weird. What did you think about like the science side of it? Like, did you I studied physics a bit in university. Did you? I guess you didn't, but
no, but I like that take of showing that side as opposed to like more of the governmental side.
Right. So in terms of like the science behind it, you didn't get lost by it or anything, right?
No, I was pretty entertained, I guess, by it.
No, fair enough. I wanted to get your perspective on that, just because like, when I watch the movie, I know who these people are, like just because
You know the history of it. Yeah.
well, I remember their names from equations that are in my textbooks. So like, and I think the movie, I thought the movie, at least from my own perspective, I thought the movie did a good job at like, you know, glossing over the science of it just enough. To an extent, I think it could have done a better job explaining how big a deal all these scientists were. You know, it name drops a lot of people, and some people it emphasizes their importance a lot, like Werner Heisenberg, and you know everyone knows who Albert Einstein is, and the way they portray Niels Bohr in the movie, the man who like almost literally invented the atom along with Ernst Rutherford, Canadian. So you know the movie makes it clear that he's important, but like Oppenheimer's doctoral advisor Max Born is like one of the most important physicists of the 20th century. Like these aren't like nobody scientists who like got together to, you know, make the atomic bomb. Like these are very important people. They're people without whom like modern physics would not exist. So it's a I think for an unfamiliar audience they didn't necessarily do a good enough job of, you know, explaining just how important some of these characters were. It's my one complaint about it.
I mean, I don't think they could have done a deep dive on how important everyone was because there were a lot of people in that inner circle.
No, that's true, and they're all kind of buddies. I don't mean like you have to like deep dive how you don't have to like give everyone their life story, because then it just turns into like one of those boring
history lessons.
The Big Short knockoffs kind of thing. Or like you ever see that Lakers show with John C. Reilly winning?
Lakers show?
Oh yeah, the HBO did a whole show about the LA Lakers in like the late 70s through the 80s and like their rivalry with Larry Bird and stuff. Yeah. And so like, but they, because it's a mini series and not a movie, they like, and it's also for like people who are kind of new to basketball, they explain kind of who everyone is. Like, it's like, oh, this is Jerry West. He's like one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And this is Larry Bird. And this is Paula Abdul, who invented the Laker girls. But that part I didn't know. But it's my point is like breaking the fourth wall to like tell you who everyone is. I find kind of tedious, but you know, sometimes it's necessary. But yeah, you can do a show don't tell kind of thing with it.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it was a good sort of struggle talking about like a man's relationship with his work. What do you do when the thing that is your greatest achievement and gave your life meaning is something that's, you know, ultimately kind of evil? Like, how do you
justify that?
How do you cope with that? Yeah. And this is where its connection with Barbie comes in. So segueing into Barbie.
Did it destroy people's lives?
No. So I think so. You haven't seen Barbie, right?
No, I have not.
Okay, so all right, how do I start this one? Barbie has generated some controversy among some people who I think were determined to hate the movie. Like Ben Shapiro famously hates this movie, and I still don't really understand why. But so I'll start by saying I enjoyed the movie. It's probably as good a movie as you could get out of what I would call a property movie, like a movie made around an intellectual property that is not, you know, that is not like a comic book or a book, like something that's not a story in and of itself. Yeah, so it has its flaws. I think on the balance of things, it's a good movie, and I think a lot of the criticism from the left that the feminism of it is sort of insufficient can sort of be glossed over by the fact that like it's a comedy movie and it doesn't have to be like this perfect political treatise. Anyway, moving on. So
how is it similar to Oppenheimer?
Okay, so here's where I want to get into it. So the way it's similar to Oppenheimer is, well, first of all, we're not going to talk about Barbie, at least in its relationship to Oppenheimer. We're going to talk about Ken's arc. I would argue, so, you know, I'm a man, so obviously I don't relate to Barbie and the women characters probably in the same way that the female audience did.
For shame.
Yeah. Fair enough. But so my own hot take on it is that Ken's character has the biggest character arc, like the biggest change, the most improvement. Now, Barbie, you know, learns to want to be human and flawed, and that's all very well and good. But I think like the soul of the movie is kind of Ken's struggle. So Ken starts out existing entirely for Barbie and in her gaze, and it's sort of a clever role reversal for
society,
for male and female characters, because you get a lot of female characters who just only exist to be the love interest of the main male character, and I'm sure that gets tiresome for women in the audience. Like, that probably sucks. But so we have this reversal where Ken only exists, and his existence is only validated when he's noticed by Barbie. Basically, what his arc is about is society makes men find their worth almost entirely based on their ability to have sex with women or their jobs. Like, men aren't really seen as having an inherent value beyond that. And I am Kenough is an assertion that men and their lives have inherent value beyond the their careers and women.
Is that a slogan made for the movie?
I am Kenough. Yes, it is.
Okay.
That's like Ken wears like so like the whole movie is like, so Ken is like exists in a subservient role to Barbie, discovers that the real world is a patriarchy, brings it back to Barbie land, and is like consumed by self-loathing when he realizes like Barbie isn't interested in him that way, and also he can't really see any use in himself beyond his job, which is kind of stupid. So his arc is like finding self-worth beyond that. Like, I am Kenough is him saying like, even if Barbie doesn't
view me as a human.
No, not view him as a human. That's not what it's like. Even if like he has worth beyond whether or not Barbie views him as a love interest and beyond his career. And Oppenheimer is very much like that, not so much in his relationship to women, but like, what's left of you beyond your work. So Barbie's a little more about the relationship side, and Oppenheimer is more about the career aspect of it. Oppenheimer has to look at his life and ask, what did my life mean if my career sort of amounted to not nothing, but worse than that? Like, my biggest achievement and my life's work resulted in, this big existential threat to humanity. And, it kind of leaves him as like an empty, hollow shell, because, his work consumed so much of his life and so much of his identity that it kind of destroyed him to have it taken away from him, and to realize that it was not to a good purpose in the end. In that sense, they're sort of both about finding your inherent self-worth. Oppenheimer never finds his inherent self-worth. He just kind of has to wallow in that existential dread, but Ken seemingly does in a sort of shallow way. So my issue with people kind of bitching about the movie and being determined to hate it is saying, they're saying like Barbie hates men, it's propaganda against men, it provides like no model for how male-female relationships are supposed to work. And two aspects of that are true. One, Barbie is indeed sort of propaganda, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, just like in a sort of factual way. Like, propaganda is anything that is any form of media that wants you to believe something, and in this case it wants you to believe that men need to derive their self-worth from beyond their conquests of women and their careers, and women have the right to self-determination and should be expected to have leadership roles, and that shouldn't be seen as something given to them, etc. It's lots of there are. It is a movie that wants you to believe in a sort of like wealthy second wave feminist message,
and the Barbie has a perfect life.
Yes, that too. And so, the brand of feminism it's kind of pushing is sort of seems to be primarily concerned with career women, which, I mean, there's a legitimate criticism in saying that like that's a very limited scope, and in focusing on, people who are privileged enough already to be career women. But I mean, again, going back to what I said earlier, it's a comedy movie. Like, it doesn't have to be like a perfect all-encompassing treatise on feminism.
Yep.
So, but anyway, like, there's nothing, even if we accept that it's propaganda, it's doesn't really say anything that's objectionable. Now, it is true that it doesn't really provide a model for, what male-female relationships should look like, at least in a romantic sexual sense. But that's sort of the point, in that the more important part was like Ken needed to find self-worth beyond, his relationship.
Barbie's hand toy.
Barbie and Barbie did too, because like it's sort of unfair to her character and unfair to Ken if we just like wrap it all up in a nice neat little package and like have them get together in the end, because like then it's not getting you to do something difficult, which is, like I said, finding self-worth beyond that. Oh, one aspect of the movie that I kind of thought was dumb, or not dumb, but
He said it. It's dumb.
no, I didn't say it was dumb.
It wasn't Kenough.
It wasn't Kenough. Okay, wait. I'm gonna go back and say I'm gonna go back and steal your line. All right. So there was one aspect of the movie that I think was not Kenough. Tanim came up with that. And that was there's a scene where America Ferrera's character is like the kind of downtrodden career woman character whose daughter hates her, sort of struggling with that, and who exists in the real world, and Barbie comes down to help her because Barbie is perfect. Anyway, so America Ferrera's character has a sort of speech about how tough it is to be a woman and in modern society, and goes on this whole tirade. And I'm not saying that women don't have it tough. It's just that, it was a very like tell don't show moment. Like it had a lot of it was like America Ferrera's character talking about how hard it is to be a woman, but it didn't really show her struggling much in the movie. Like she kind of had to say those things because we didn't get enough time with her as a character to kind of see her life and how it's negatively impacted by the men in society around her. Again, not to say it's not true, it's just I think that was a piece of bad writing. And the way I think it wasn't enough, I'd like to contrast it with the movie Bad Moms. Have you seen Bad Moms?
Yes, I have.
Bad Moms is the #1 downtrodden career mom movie.
Nice.
I guess. #1. Very funny, but I think most importantly, Mila Kunis has a very similar tirade against, society's expectations of women and mothers, and how unfair it is and how much it sucks. And it's much better. It's a much better tirade. And not necessarily because of the content of her speech, but because we got to live through the unfairness of her life with her. Like, America Ferrera's character, like, her biggest flaw is we just got no time with her. Like, the movie kind of didn't know who it wanted to be the main character. Mostly it's Barbie, but Ken has a big story arc, but then they, want to have America Ferrera as, like, the real world character, but it doesn't get enough time with America Ferrera. Whereas, like, Mila Kunis's character in Bad Moms, you see her getting shit on by, like, her lazy husband and her snotty, ungrateful children, and like the shitty other moms who are always like judging her, and society pressuring her children, and by proxy pressuring her, and her awful bosses who don't give her a fair shake because she's not young and she's a woman. And we see the unfairness of her life. We feel it. We feel her righteous anger and her rebellion against it. And it makes like her tirade against it all in kind of in the middle of the movie that much more meaningful, because we've seen it, we feel it, we feel for her because we know her life is unfair, and it was so much more effective because of that. Like, the emotion it evokes in you is that much more meaningful just because we went on this journey with her character. I might be giving this movie a little too much credit because it's also a pretty dumb comedy movie, but like, it's a much better version of that scene only because of the setup. Like, that's a case where almost nothing about the scene is different between the two movies. It's just Bad Moms had a much better setup, and therefore the payoff was better. Like the scene was earned. Again, not that like anything America Ferrera said isn't true. It's just that we don't know who America Ferrera is. We don't know. We don't really have a deep knowledge of how she suffers through it, and you know that makes it kind of less meaningful when she has this tirade. So yes, Bad Moms, much better movie for that specific scene.
Yeah, take that, Greta Gerwig.
Take that, Greta Gerwig. Yes, be more like Bad Moms. But I mean, yeah, that's kind of the one that's the one that like really stood out to me as actually bad writing.
I know. Where was the connection?
Where was the
Wait, hold on. I got one more. Where was the Kenergy?
The Kenergy. You needed the Kenergy. You needed the fuck. I don't have any more. But
okay, you're Kenough.
I am Kenough. My puns are Kenough. Yes. Yeah, no, it was just like that specific part was bad writing. Otherwise, very funny movie. A few more aspects that, people have complained about and I think are kind of bullshit criticisms. So I'm gonna do my thing where like I alternate, what criticisms are bullshit and what criticisms are legitimate. So there is a trans Barbie character in the movie played by Hari Neff, and
how are they trans if they don't have any genitals?
I think so.
All of them.
Yeah, I guess they do address that Barbie characters do not have genitals, but I guess you could be trans if no one in society has any genitals.
Right. If they're all flat.
Yeah, I guess it makes things a lot simpler. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyways.
Yeah, I guess you could be, but anyway. But so the complaints about, there being a trans Barbie in the movie are not like legitimate. They're just kind of cunty because so Hari Neff's character is Dr. Barbie. I totally didn't notice she was in the movie. She says like 4 lines in the movie. I did not even know Hari Neff was trans. Like they don't talk about her character being like her character doesn't talk about being trans at all. It's just the actress who plays her is trans, and like she's so like unintrusive and a minor character. Like the only way you could complain about her being in the movie is that like you just don't want trans people in movies at all, and that's just kind of bitchy. Like it's so unintrusive and unoffensive. Like you can't complain about people just existing and like call it like an insidious political message. It's complete nonsense. Ben Shapiro's just being a little cunt about it. Anyway, it's such a non-issue. And it irritated me so much to hear that people were mad about this because I only heard about it after I'd watched the movie and not noticed that Hari Neff was in the movie. And I remember her from the movie Assassination Nation. I did not notice her, and I feel kind of bad about it because I really liked Assassination Nation. But anyway, like the fact that people were complaining about something like so unintrusive and minor, like it's so like shitty and bitchy. Like it's not a legitimate criticism. Like so, and I kind of want to talk about what does woke mean? And woke has developed this meaning of nothing. Like, it doesn't fucking mean anything anymore. It just, like, I don't like something, so it's woke. It's blech. Trans people and minorities existed, it's woke. Blech. Like, it's just, you can't, like, you can be mad at a movie for having a political message you disagree with. I do that all the time. But like, people just being in the movie is not political. You're making it political by saying like them being in the movie is political. Like it's such nonsense. Nothing about it is insidious or political. It's just people in the movie. And the worst part is like the term woke has like infiltrated mainstream politics to be this nothing word for something that's bad. And like, so you have people saying like, fucking ESG is woke, so we can't have pension funds, we won't allow pension funds to fund companies that don't poison our rivers because that's woke. Like it's just, it means nothing. it means nothing. It's basically ad hominem at this point. It's just like a vague nothing insult. But anyway, so
In conclusion, Lake loves woke people.
I fucking love wokeness. I'm kidding, but like if you use wokeness to describe just anything you don't like, it's like.
I mean, there aren't any black people in Oppenheimer, so
Anyway, so lest people think I'm like the world's biggest shill for this movie, I think I need to move on to a point that's critical.
take that, woke people.
Look, I'm down with criticizing the Barbie movie. I'm just woke has lost all meaning. So it's not a real criticism. So I will give it legitimate criticisms. So anyway, so you know how ever since Shrek came out, you remember when Shrek came out, right, Tanim? We're both old enough for that. It
Shrek.
came out in like 2002 or something. Yeah. It's been a long ass time now. Shrek's kind of started this period of like historical revisionist Disney movies where Shrek burned the tropes of fairy tales so hard that kind of every movie afterwards felt it had to do the same thing, just in terms of criticizing its own story structure. And a lot of Disney movies, like especially, and I don't mean Disney movies generally, but Disney remakes have this thing that they like to do where they sort of self-criticize in a like the old versions of the movie and erase, the parts that people now consider to be like icky or problematic or whatever you want to call it. So like Beauty and the Beast like is like a creepy story of Stockholm syndrome. So, when they remake Beauty and the Beast, they have to be like, oh no, it's not Stockholm syndrome. But the point I'm getting at is a lot of these movies feel the need to redeem Disney properties, like to restructure themselves in a way that redeems Disney properties to, appeal to our sensibilities, which find old-timey racism and sexism kind of gross. The problem with all of this is it's trying to rebrand it. Like it's Disney trying to rebrand itself to sell you more shit.
Yep.
Like it's not like taking any responsibility or like or saying like the honest thing, which was like this was a different time and
let's move on.
None of us believe it now, but we're not going to pretend it didn't happen. But so Barbie is very much trying to do the same thing in that they're trying to redeem Barbie as being by pretending it's more inclusive than it was. And they do address like at the very beginning of the movie, they make a joke about how like Barbie, like a tongue-in-cheek joke about how like Barbie solved inequality between men and women. Obviously that's not true. It's sort of like a very surface level self-criticism, but in the movie they have like, black president Barbie, plus size Barbie, they call Margot Robbie stereotypical Barbie. But so the Barbies in the movie are very inclusive in terms of their, ethnicity and body type. And they do talk about how Barbie was bad for girls' self-image. And it's done through like America Ferrera's Daughter, where she like says like, Barbie, you make women hate themselves. You're a fascist. Fuck you. And they don't really they don't deal with that at all. They just say like, America Ferrera's Daughter is shitty and wrong and is just being a negative Nancy and doesn't know what she's talking. So the movie, in being inclusive in terms of, body type and ethnicity, sort of neglects the fact that inclusive Barbie is a very recent phenomenon, like as in the last 5 years kind of thing. Like plus size Barbie is like a thing that happened in like 2018. And like Black Barbie became a character in...
Did they have Black Barbie?
Oh, they always have. Well, okay, not always have, but like they've had... Black Barbie has been around for a while compared to like plus size Barbie. Let me just Google when Black Barbie was invented. Okay, yeah. So Black Barbie has been around since like 1980. So it's been a while. Like I think like size inclusive Barbie is definitely a more recent thing, but Barbie was definitely not always like an inclusive brand, and they're kind of trying to, in the Barbie world, they're kind of trying to pretend that it always was and like thereby redeem the brand. And so, that's kind of unavoidable with a property movie in that like you can't really like torch the property itself. Like you can do like some lighthearted criticism that's like played for laughs, like Ruth Handler's tax evasion, and like the fact that Barbie didn't solve gender inequality, but like in the end, like you kind of have to redeem the brand, like and that's just kind of the nature of the property movie. So when I say like it's as good as a property movie could be, that's kind of what I mean. It's like it's inherently limited by the fact that like Mattel had to sign off on a lot of this shit. So and that's why I have a huge amount of respect for the movie The Founder, because The Founder got no one's permission from anyone to do anything. They just made a movie about McDonald's entirely through like the legal concept of fair use, that like you're allowed to tell a story that's true and use brands as long as you're not like you're telling a true enough story that you're not smearing them.
Was that with
Yeah,
Michael
yeah, the
Keaton?
Michael Keaton movie. So like that movie was a movie about McDonald's that was like not beholden to McDonald's
McDonald's.
itself. Like
Right.
you're talking about like the movie didn't talk about like the obesity epidemic it contributed to, or Ray Kroc's labor practice, anything like that. But like it was a movie that didn't have to redeem the McDonald's brand in the end,
Yep.
because like it wasn't on McDonald's payroll. Whereas the Barbie movie has to serve the brand.
So did they have a black Barbie in it?
Yeah. President Barbie is black.
Nice.
So like, and there's a lot. I think there's quite a few black characters in the movie, but like,
Not in Oppenheimer.
but like I said, yeah, Black Barbie has been around forever, but like size inclusive Barbies have only been around since like 2018, 2017. So that's like like canonically there have been black Barbies for like 43 years, but size inclusive Barbie is definitely a more recent
I wonder
addition.
if that got any sales.
Which
Size inclusive Barbies.
I don't actually know what they're called. I have to look this up.
Would you want a fat Barbie over like a regular
Well, I
size
mean,
Barbie?
like, it's a legitimate criticism to say that, like, okay, so, 2016, they offered, like, 5 body types and, like, 22 skin tones and, like, 94 hair colors and 13 eye colors. So, like, it's pretty, like, customizable. And I think that, like, it's probably good to, like, have girls be able to see themselves in the doll and, like, not see, like, that they have to look like Margot Robbie, because Margot Robbie was, like, genetically created by the Australian government to play Barbie in a movie. But I mean,
Right.
yeah, I could imagine people buying that. So wait, I want you to cut this joke and put it in after my whole tirade about them being bitchy about trans Barbie. So like, because I just thought of it, but like people who are mad about like trans people just existing, it's like those dudes who boycotted Bud Light for like having like one ad campaign with like a trans influencer on it. Like it's like one endorsement, and it's not like they're saying like, oh, you have to be trans to drink Bud Light. It's like one ad. It like you can't be mad about like someone just being in an ad. It's very bizarre and strange. But the most bizarre part of it all is like, and the real problem at the core of it is that like there are dudes out there who think that like, oh, I'm a real fucking man for drinking Bud Light. You're pretty your masculinity's pretty thin if you think its pinnacle is drinking Bud Light. You're not a real man unless you drink Colt 45, the malt liquor, which is 8% alcohol.
Were you expecting more from people who drink
Not
Bud
at
Light?
all, no, I guess not. But like, but see, like the problem is like Bud Light has been like, oh yeah, you're a man, you drink Bud Light. Like, no, you're not. You're not a fucking man if you drink Bud Light. You're a man only if you drink Colt 45. So Dylan, you gotta endorse Colt 45. That's the only way this gets solved. Colt 45 needs to be endorsed. So, yeah. This is my endorsement for Colt 45 malt liquor. The only drink for real men. Anyway, sorry, going back to black and size-inclusive Barbies. I could be wrong on this, and let me know if you've noticed this as well. But society and, feminism's relationship with Barbie has sort of fluctuated over the years, at least in what I've seen. and it seemed like when I was a kid, the view was that like Barbie was actively hateful towards women, and things that were conventionally feminine were part of patriarchal society trying to control you, control what you dress, control what your size was, that sort of thing. Like it was Barbie, and stereotypically feminine clothing and makeup and certain body sizes were seen as anti-feminist. The man trying to tell you like how you have to look. And more recently, it seems we've sort of shifted towards this idea that no, you can be conventionally feminine and dress in pink and care about purses and bleach blonde hair and makeup and all that sort of thing, and still be like a career woman. None of those things are mutually exclusive. And you ever hear women like complain about girls who are pick me's or not like the other girls? That feels like a reaction against this sort of non-inclusive feminism that said like, to be liberated, you have to like do the opposite of what society wants you to do. Like, you're not a real feminist if you wear pink and dye your hair blonde and look like Margot Robbie. But I mean, obviously there have always been people who said, no, you can do whatever you want, but feels like at least like the characters in the Barbie movie are kind of symbolic of like kind of a new brand for what you might call a conventional feminine fashion, which the cynical part of me thinks that, this is all just corporate rebranding to get you to buy more shit because, God forbid any movement to stop wearing makeup actually succeeded and, people actually did stop buying mascara and L'Oreal lost all of its money. Like, no, we can't have that. So we have to rebrand to say that, like, no, feminism is inclusive with, spending all of this money on makeup and fashion. I'm a cynical man. I don't think we have a lot of free will, or not as much as we think we do. Probably is just a scheme to to sell more makeup,
buy more shit.
In the end, it probably is good to say to women that like, there's no wrong way to be. It's not that when we say like, when we criticize Barbies for being only one way, we're not saying that way is wrong. It's just that we want to be able to choose the way we dress and, without facing judgment. And so a minor criticism of the movie, I think the movie doesn't necessarily extend that same courtesy towards the Kens. Granted, I'm not that sore about it. It's a comedy movie, but the Kens are owed the same courtesy that like, you can like what we might call conventionally masculine activities, or what are thought of to be conventionally masculine activities. Like, you can like horses and goofy cowboy outfits and drinking beer. Like, none of those things are like inherently evil. So I think it would be nice if like there was, if men were able to have sort of the same movement within ourselves, like saying that like all of these things are like all of these superficial things like sports and horseback riding and cowboy culture, that's none of that is like inherently negative. We just need to take like the bad shit about like hurting women and hurting each other out of it. There's nothing inherently like bad or toxic about country music or guitar music or things like that. So let the Kens have their horses. Again, comedy movie, doesn't have to be perfect. And again, I know women everywhere are going to think this is very precious, but given that, there's only been a few archetypes for women characters forever, but
cancel him.
Yeah, pretty much. But hey man, I love cancel culture. We never have to watch Kevin Hart host the Oscars. But
you would have been fine.
No, I wouldn't have. I would have literally died if I had to watch Kevin Hart host the Oscars. It's not okay, man. That is not okay. Do you know what a himbo is?
A himbo. Male bimbo?
Male bimbo. Yes. Ken, Thor. I'm trying to think who else. Ken, Thor, Fred from Scooby-Doo. Who else is a himbo?
I've heard mimbo, but that's already a term that Seinfeld created.
Oh, right. Yeah. Himbo is like stolen from Seinfeld. But basically, Chris Hemsworth is like the himbo in every movie. Like Chris Hemsworth in Thor and in when he's like the secretary in Ghostbusters. Yeah, Fred. Who else did I say? Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove. So those are himbos, and Ken is a himbo. And so a himbo is basically how himbos are used is they're a way to create like a form of non-threatening but also attractive and sexy masculinity.
Yeah.
And like and I think we need to move on from that and, you know, come up with like a new way for like men to be like however they want to be, or, you know, to be able to be like sporty or tough or whichever, without, you know, having to be unintelligent to, you know, make them unthreat. And women everywhere are going to be like, how do you think we feel? This is what we've had to deal with. Like, you know, intelligent women are always seen as like bitchy and need a man to like complete them. And like, you know, how do you think we feel? Like, I know, I get it. But like, no more himbos, please. Like, I'm not saying no, actually, no, I'm not saying no more himbos. Just like, we need to be able to like think of like positive masculinity beyond the himbo. We need to be able to grow beyond that to like not take it as an easy way out of like creating new characters with new personalities.
Let's never use the word himbo again.
Look, as long as Chris Hemsworth is still alive, there's nothing I can do. It's how he is. But also, like, Chris Hemsworth, like, kind of didn't start as a himbo because, like, Thor in the first movies is like an arrogant prick who's like literally a god and rubs it in everyone's faces, and like he's kind of a himbo in like the later Marvel universe. He sort of like turned into one.
Well, what about Henry Cavill?
I don't think he is one. Because The Witcher, like his character in The Witcher is like too serious and too smart.
Yeah, but he's Superman.
To be a himbo. I don't think Superman's a himbo either. I don't think you can be a himbo and like serious. Like Superman's like too serious and angry. At least like the Zack Snyder Superman are too serious and angry. That's a whole different thing. No one actually watched the Zack Snyder movies, so it doesn't even matter. Those movies have no cultural relevance at all. So to that point, the first thing I thought when you said Henry Cavill was The Witcher and not Superman. So,
shame on you.
Yeah. Who else always plays? Yeah. Henry Cavill's like weird because I think he'd be good at playing himbos just because like he's very buff, but he never really plays stupid characters.
Good on him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not like that. Henry would never do that to us. Maybe. He might. I don't actually know. Once that Witcher money dries up, we'll see. We'll see where he goes. But yeah, I think Andy Dwight from Parks and Rec is a himbo. Ooh. But you know, it's like, oh, Chris Pratt is always a himbo, especially since he got buff. You know, before he was kind of like
pudgy.
Yeah, just pudgy. But you know, he got really buff, so he turned into a himbo.
Gross.
But Robert Downey Jr.'s character is not a himbo, but he's also like a womanizer, and like that's like threatening and.
Not an Oppenheimer.
Yeah, that's not not where it goes. That's not.
I had to bring it back to the movies.
Yeah, we got to bring it back to the movies. Anyway, yeah, Ken will be the last himbo.
So, if you had to choose one movie to see, what would you see between the two?
Barbie, because it's an hour shorter.
Oh shit! Take that.
Yeah, I'd see Barbie because it's an hour shorter. I'm sorry, Oppenheimer. It's just, 3 hours is a long time. 3 hours is a long fucking time. But no,
I think they should bring back intermissions.
I agree. Let me go to the pub, drink some delicious, cool, and alcoholic and manly Colt 45, and then go back to the movie.
I mean, at least get a pee break.
Yes. From all that Colt 45, please.
Right.
Colt 45. Drink Colt 45.
Sponsor us.
Real man.
I wonder if they sponsor podcasts.
Also, Ben Shapiro, you do not fucking get to like claim you're a real man. You are fucking 5'2" and you sound like a cartoon nerd. You have the most ridiculous voice I've ever heard. You are not a real man. You have never drank a Colt 45 in your life.
Clip it.
Clip it. Get that. The man never drank a Colt 45 in his life. He's not a real man. His voice would not sound like that, and he would not talk about how dry he makes his wife as though it's a brag if he had drank a Colt 45. Like that's not the talk of a Colt 45 man. That's just wrong. Yeah, so yeah, Barbie because it's
shorter.
It's slightly shorter. I'm sorry. I need movies to not be 3 hours long. But anyway, we got to move on from Barbenheimer. We got to move on to the next big thing, which is Dune Palumpa. i.e., the Timothy Chalamet Dumble feature of Dune 2 and the fucking Willy Wonka origin story that literally no one wanted.
That
Like at all. Man, have you seen, you know, Timothy Chalamet has a fragrance from Chanel now?
I did not know that.
No one wants to smell like Timothy Chalamet. Timothy Chalamet looks like he smells like cigarettes. You know, Timothy Chalamet smells like Montreal, like unfiltered cigarettes and like deli meat. That's I'm sorry, Timothy Chalamet. It's just
I would say like BO, no, like a special BO, Timothy.
oh, okay. Cigarettes, right? Like cigarettes has to be in there. Maybe he
Maybe.
smells like Colt 45.
No, he does not.
Oh, okay. Too skinny.
He's too fancy for that.
Too fancy for Colt. I don't know, but he's like Timothy Chalamet is like Montreal if he was a person. You know, he's got that like he's got the unfiltered cigarette skinniness, the French features. He's and Montreal is like fake fancy. Montreal is like the peak Montreal is like drinking Colt 45 out of a wine glass. That's what Montreal is. And that's what Timothy Chalamet. And that's what fucking Timothy Chalamet's Chanel brand smells like. That's what
I mean, if the feminists didn't hate us before, they definitely do now.
Hey, I fucking defended the movie. I gave it legitimate criticisms, and I endorsed the greatest feminist movie of the 20th century or the 21st century, Bad Moms. My feminist street cred is strong.
What are Chalamet fans called, you know?
No.
Well, they're after you.
Oh, okay. Are there Chalamet stands?
I'm sure they are.
I don't know, man. Look, they can't criticize me for shitting on the Willy Wonka movie. Literally, no one wanted this movie. It is being foisted upon us. I really hope it fails. Origin stories are like how they keep the budgets going and don't have to, you know, develop original stories or anything like that. Fuck the Willy Wonka movie. I hope it fails. Oh, but also, very hypocritically, I hope the second Dune movie that is based on a book and a long-time sci-fi property succeeds very much, because I am a hypocrite and I only want the things I like to succeed.
They're all over the place.
I am all over the place. People talk about hypocrisy like it's bad, but it's not. It means I get to like enjoy the things I like and you don't.
Take that.
Take
that, Timothy Chalamet.
Yes, take that, Timothy.
Make better choices.
But also, come on the show. Please come on the show. I'm begging you. I will buy you, Timothy, I will buy you a Colt 45 if you come on the show.
And provide you with smokes.
I don't know how to buy cigarettes. I've never smoked, so I don't know how to, like, what do I ask for? I don't even know cigarette brands in Canada, because it's not like I can ask for, like, the brands I know from, like, American movies. Like, I can't go in and be like, I'd like a pack of Parliaments or, like, Camels or Marlboros. I have to ask.
Yeah, they still have those.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Marlboro's a big brand.
Yeah, but, like, in Canada?
I'm sure you can find some stores.
Anyway, I don't know how to buy I don't know how to buy cigarettes or lottery tickets. I've never done it. Like, I'd have to go and be like, I'd have to, like, ask what brands they have, and, like, I don't know what sizes they come with. It'd just be, like, a whole embarrassing ordeal.
That'd be a good clip.
Yeah.
Also, now that they're not publicized, so like you have no idea what to choose from.
Exactly. In Canada, they're all fucking behind these like black walls, and which those things, as it turns out, fucking work, because I don't know any cigarette brands, so I don't know how to buy cigarettes, and now I'm too embarrassed to ask. So I'm not doing it for health reasons. I'm too embarrassed to like buy cigarettes for the first time. Timothy, you've got to bring your own smokes. Please. I don't know how to buy them. Help me, please. Oh, Christ. Yeah, it's the same thing with lottery tickets. Like, have you ever bought a lottery ticket?
Yes, many times.
I don't know how to buy a lottery ticket. I do it wrong, and it'd be embarrassing and terrible.
You can just ask the dude, and he'll tell you what to do.
I'd just be like, one lottery ticket. Be like, what kind? And I'd, like, run away.
They're on to me.
I don't know, and you have to like pick numbers or something. I don't know how to do that. What if I pick the wrong numbers?
Well, you can either do it manually or you can do it randomly.
See, this sounds complicated.
It's really easy once you know, just like buying anything.
Yeah, but that's the thing. it'll be easy once I know, but I don't know. It's like if I went to can you imagine going to a Starbucks for the first time and like not knowing how all the sizes work and like not knowing how buying Starbucks is so fucking complicated because like everything there is not on the menu and like or like half of what you can get is not on the menu and like the sizes are all stupid and like they ask you for like syrups.
Because it's so customizable, that's why.
Exactly. Like the only way I can buy Starbucks is through the app because like then I can like there are things that I didn't even know were options. So like I need the app to tell me these things are my options. I need an app to tell me how to gamble. It's not going to work otherwise.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, yeah, that's it for Barbenheimer. We'll have an episode once
Dune comes out.
and
Wonka Man.
Wonka comes out. Yeah. All right.
All right.
All right.